Okay, and welcome back. So as promised, we're going to be adding and subtracting mixed numbers together, right? So the easiest way to deal with this is to convert the mixed numbers to improper fractions, okay? Because later on, it's better just to learn something that you'll be dealing with later than to unlearn something and then learn a different thing later on, right? So in this case here, we'll start with this example. So we have 1 2/3, right? So all the numbers are different. You got a 1 here, you got a 2, and you got a 3. Just for the sake of completeness, this 1 2/3 is really 1 plus 2/3. That means that you've got a whole piece here of 1 whole piece, plus you've got 2/3 of a pie, right? So in this case here, if we were dealing with, let's see if I can draw this. So there we go. So here is 2/3, I guess it's not really perfect, but you guys get the idea, right? I guess maybe this would have to be a little bit like this right here, right? There you go. So this is 2/3. So if I was to cut this up into thirds as well, then I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, right? So technically I should have 5/3, right? Well, let's see if that's what happens here. So the first thing we want to do is this. Equal sign, put a fraction bar, take the denominator, write it down. Okay, simple enough, right? So you just take your denominator here, the 3 that you have here, and you just write it down. So this basically means that whatever number you get up here is the total amount of the third pieces you're dealing with. This bottom number, like I mentioned in the previous video, is the size of the piece that you're dealing with, right? And up here just tells you how many of those pieces you're dealing with, right? So if you have a third of a size, so these are 1/3 pieces, the top number would tell you how many you have. So in this case here, I should get a 5, right? So this is how we're going to do it. So you can either take the 1 times the 3, or you can start with the 3 times the 1. It doesn't even matter. I'm just going to do 3 times 1, okay? And you'll see why. So we do 3 times 1, so that's going to be 3, right? So here, this is multiplication on this side. And I guess, yeah, why not? Let's use different color. And then we have 3 plus this 2 over here, right? So this is addition. Well, what's 3 plus the 2? Well, that's going to be equal to 5, right? So we just write the 5 there. Okay? Simple, right? All you do is just multiply 3 times the 1 or 1 times the 3, and then you just add that to the numerator. That's it. See? Okay, let's do another example. Let me move this over a little bit so we can see this as well. So let's put another problem on here. So let's look at, how about 2 3/4? Okay. So what's the first step? Good. Equal sign. And the fraction bar, right? And what's the first thing we write down? The 4. Exactly. That's always the first thing. You write down the 4. Okay. Now, I was going to just do this in one color, but I think maybe it helps to have multiple colors. So let's just go ahead and do it with multiple colors. I know you guys are using just a regular pencil, but if you have like different colors, that might be helpful. But let's do this. So again, it's whichever one you're comfortable with, either 2 times the 4 or the 4 times the 2. It doesn't matter. It's just there's multiplication down here. So we're going to do this. 2 times the 4 is 8, right? And it's multiplication down here. And then on the top part, we're going to do 8 plus the 3, right? And this is going to be plus. So then we get 11, right? 11/4. Easy, right? Let's do one more here. So let's see. Let's do 3 1/5. Okay? First thing we do, equal sign, fraction bar, right? Bring the 5, the denominator in the fraction. We're going to copy that down. Okay? Then we're going to do multiplication, right? So either, again, 3 times 5 or 5 times 3, your choice. So 3 times 5 is 15, right? And again, that's multiplication down there. And then we have the 15 plus the 1, which is 16, right? And this is addition. And that's 16, right? So now we know how to do that. That's the very first step we need to know how to do. So the next thing is to actually add two of these mixed numbers together. So let's try an example. Let me clear this off. How about 1 1/2 plus 2 3/4? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I guess I'll write these underneath here, right? So this 1 1/2 is going to be down here. Then there's going to be a plus sign. And then I'm going to write this other one down here. And there'll be an equal sign, right? So typically your problem would look something like that, right? So let's do this together. Ready? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write down our fraction bar for both. So we have a 2 here. We'll start with this one here. So we have the 2. Now we do 2 times the 1, which is 2, right? Then we're going to add to that 2 this one over here. So this is plus, and this is multiplication, right? So 2 times the 1 is 2, and 2 plus the 1 is 3, right? So this is where my 3 goes. And again, we're going to do the same thing. So we have a fraction bar over here. First thing is we write down the 4. So we take that 4, bring it down here. And then we're going to multiply the 2 times the 4. Again, either 2 times 4 or 4 times 2. So this will be 8, okay? And this is multiplication. Then we're going to take the 8 and add it to the 3, right? And that gives us 11. See? Now, you guys know how to do this part, right? If this would have been easy if this was 11 halves, right? If this was 3 halves plus 11 halves, that'd be easy because you could just write the denominators. But this case here, we don't really have like denominators. So, like I showed you guys, the easy way to do this thing. Now, this is, again, in the first video, remember I showed you an example of where you'd want to find the least common denominator. In this case, you really should, because it would be a lot easier. You'd be dealing with smaller numbers, okay? But I'm going to show you both ways anyway, okay? This is what we're going to do. We're going to use the, I guess maybe I should do it in this color here, so it's easier to see. These 3 halves, I would like to describe it in such a way that I could add the 11/4 to it, right? So if it's easier for me to convert half pieces into smaller pieces like fourths, right? So I can multiply the top and the bottom by 2, right? And so what does this become? Well, this becomes 2 times 3, which is 6. So this 2 times the 3 over here is 6. So that would be 6 over, well, 2 times 2 is 4, and that would be 4, right? Then I add to that 11/4. Now it's simple, right? So now I've got 6 plus 11, well, here we're talking about fourths, and now I've got 6 plus 11, and that's 17, right? Okay, so let's say we don't want to do that. Let me, again, move this over to the left a little bit, and let's take a look at 3 halves plus 11/4. We'll do this one more time. So we've got 3 halves plus 11/4. Okay, so I showed you guys how to do it down here with the least common denominator, right? So what you found is the least common multiple. Okay, so the least common multiple of 2 and 4 is 4. And the least common denominator of this fraction and this fraction is 4. Okay, so that's just terminology, okay? So here we go. So now we got these two. Same we did, remember? We see 3 halves, 11/4, 3 halves, 11/4. Haven't changed anything. The only thing we're going to do is this. We're going to take the method that we used for adding fractions in the very first video that I showed you how to add, the fastest way to add fractions. So we're going to do that here. So the first thing we're going to do is write down our fraction bar. 2 times 4 is 8. Then we have the 4 times the 3, which is 12. Then we have the 2 times the 11, which is 22. And then we have 12, well, then we have a plus sign. So we have our plus sign here. Then we have 12 plus the 22 is going to be a 34, right? So we have 12 plus the 22, and this is equal to 34 over 8, right? And then I showed you guys, well, you could take this and break it up into smaller pieces. 34 really is just 2 times 17, and 8 is really just 2 times 4, right? And look at this. These cancel out, right? Easy, right? And you get 17/4. And that's the same answer you got here, right? Okay, so that's essentially how to add mixed numbers together. So we started off with these over here, and we ended up with this answer over here. We did it by this method of adding fractions, and we got to this answer. We can also use this crisscross method here, and it'll still yield us the same answer anyway, okay? So without going through a whole bunch of examples, that takes care of that. Now we want to move on to the subtraction of these, okay? And you're going to find this is really simple. Basically, it's the same thing as we've been doing before with adding and subtracting fractions. You want to get it to an improper fraction and then do the subtraction that way. Okay, so this time we're going to do 2 2/3 minus 1 1/2. I'd rather take away a smaller amount from a bigger amount, okay? So we know what this is, right? So we've got, well, first of all, let's write down our fraction bars, so minus sign and fraction bar, right? And on this number we've got a 3, okay? And we're going to multiply the 3 times a 2, and that gives us a 6, okay? Then we're going to add the 6 plus the 2, and that gives us an 8, okay? Then we're going to take this right side over here and do the same thing we did before. This is going to be 2 here, and then we're going to take the 2 times the 1, which is equal to 2, and then we're going to take the 2 and then add it to this one over here, and it's going to give us a 3, right? And now we just have to subtract this 3 from this 8 here, and this gives us, well, unfortunately, we've got to deal with the denominators again. So again, we can either look for a common denominator, which in this case here, they're both just factors of 6, right? So that means I'd want to get 6, so I have to multiply this by 2 over 2, this by 3 over 3, but it's a lot easier if I just do this. Look, first of all, 3 times 2, 2 times 3, that's going to be equal to 6. Then we have 2 times the 8, which is 16. Then we have this 3 times the 3, and that gives us a 9. And then we're dealing, oh, this is a circle, and we're dealing with minus sign, right? So we have a minus sign, and we've got 16 minus 9, and this is equal to 7/6, right? Simple enough. That's basically it. I mean, it doesn't get any more difficult than that. The only other situation you got to worry about is when you're dealing with negatives, but that's simple, right? If this had been 9 minus 16, well, then your answer would just be a negative, right? No big deal. It just basically means that you had $9 in the bank and you withdrew 16, so you'd be -7, right? So if the situation was reversed and we had 1 1/2 minus 2 2/3, now look at this. I'm going to do it from left to right. I know this right here, this is going to end up being 3/2, right? And this right here, well, I got a minus sign, obviously. And then this 2 2/3, we already figured out is going to be 8/3, right? And check this out. Since my bottom is going to be 6 here, this is going to be 16. This is going to be 9. So then I have a minus sign here. So 9 minus 16. 9 minus 16 is equal to -7/6. You see? And it works out exactly the same way I said, just with a negative sign, only because I switched these two numbers here. And that's basically it. That's essentially all you need to worry about. Now, if you were dealing with 3 or 4 or 5 fractions, then you just do 2 at a time. Just do the first 2, then you get an answer, then use that one on the next fraction, and you just keep doing the same steps over and over again, okay? And then that's basically it. All right, well, that concludes this. If this is all you guys needed, well, in that case, I guess we're done. So as always, guys, good luck with your homework and tests in the future, and thank you for watching.